Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Dearest Mother, Love Ruthie. Ruth Smallshaw Ray's Letters to Her Mother, 1947, Part 28. St. Augustine, Florida, March 11th, 1947. My dearest mother. Hello, darling, and how is my sweet little mother? And how is the old tooth behaving? I hope it's okay, but I'll be wondering until I hear from you. I got the parcel yesterday, and thanks so much, dear. The writing paper is very pretty. I'll really have to write to Auntie Fanny and thank her. And I was so relieved to get the lipstick, and believe me, I appreciate not having to scrape out the end of my last summer's tube anymore. It's a great life without lipstick. Gee, dear, who was the slip from? 40 is too big, and I really like white satin better. If I sent you the money, do you think maybe you could find a white satin Soulette slip, size 36, with elastic in the back like Alice sent me for Christmas? Nothing like them. I'd really appreciate it. I've looked everywhere. We went into Jacksonville Saturday morning after we went to the bank. We did some shopping. I got myself a pair of summer pajamas and a pale green cotton play suit with skirt. I managed to post the letter I wrote in study hall last week, which is where I am trying to write this. Probably both letters have a military air, just a crabby old teacher on duty. I sure see how collegiate teachers get to be strict. You have to be with older children. I'm so glad to get back to my kiddies the next day. Marion isn't well again and looks quite sick. She came back to school today but is pale. She has a cold. Mrs. Hopkins, the woman who exchanged with me last week, and her husband drove me up tonight, and I really appreciated it, about 1.5 miles. We've sure been spoiled as far as walking is concerned. A car really seems to be a necessity. Oh, was it ever interesting. When we got on the bus Saturday, it was packed with dark fellows, hair and eyes. They were Peruvians. They offered us seats, and I was lucky enough to sit beside the only one who could speak English. What an interesting conversation. They were Peruvian sailors who'd flown from Lima to Florida, going by bus to New York to man a ship to take back to Peru. He wanted to know how our government felt towards South America, and thought that the Pan-American Highway would really make the two continents more unified. 2 others were teaching me Spanish with him as interpreter, and said I should stay on the bus, and by the time we reached New York I would be able to speak Spanish. Marion got a kick out of it, especially me trying to tell them it wasn't Canarian. They were also interested in what we did for amusement, if American girls danced like in the movies. We had to wait 2 hours for a bus coming back, but got back by 8 o'clock, and Johnny took me dancing out at Surfside, and we had a good time, although his old girlfriend was there, the girl he was going out with when he met me. Everything was okay, although she made a scene a few weeks ago. I wasn't there, but she'd seen me. He was over this afternoon and took me driving and helped me buy a bag of groceries. It's easier than carrying them home. He was asking if I'd stay here this summer. Don asked me again what I planned to do, if I was planning on going back to Saskatchewan. Gee, I wish I knew. What do you think? I still miss Don. Did I tell you that Ian packed up varsity? I guess it's a tough grind. I just helped a girl write about her appendix operation. She'd written, I was upset in my side. Another showed me pictures of skiers in Montreal. I cannot tell a lie. I have never gone snow skiing. Letting Canada down. Did I tell you Marion's dad is back in the hospital and has had 5 or 6 x-rays, but they still don't know what's wrong. I went to art class last night, more perspective. Mr. Eder wasn't there, and I had an argument with the woman instructing. I know I'm right, so I quit talking, drew it my way, and she said it was good, and said that they had discussed the fact that I must have had quite a bit of training before. I'm crazy about drawing honestly, and getting better too. Well, my little darling, I sure wish you were here. There's so much to talk about. Write to me. I love you. Thanks again for the parcel. How much would the slip be worth? Marion is bigger than me. Love, Ruthie. 28 Water Street, St. Augustine, Florida, April 1st, 1947. My dearest mother. Hello, darling. Was I ever sorry to hear about all the trouble you've had with your teeth? And I do hope the gums are clearing up somewhat now. That's really too bad, and I know how it was with one tooth, let alone so many. Gee, dear, I wish I hadn't been so lax about writing, too. You were really very sweet about sending the income tax forms so promptly. I got them yesterday. Really speed there. I was glad to notice, though, that they aren't due until the end of April. You see, we had to have our American income tax in by March 15th, so thought Canadian was March 31st. Anyway, thanks for sending them. Incidentally, Canadian income is exempt to $660 single. Here it's only to $550, and approximately $15 higher in the lower bracket than in Canada. However, when it's around $2,000, here it's $249 compared with $443 in Canada. And $3,000 here is $472 compared to Canadian $882. Almost double in Canada. Well, dear, I'll have to tell you the latest in our little decisions. I'd sort of like to hear what you think. You see, everyone has been asking what we'll do, and we do have to either resign or sign our contract for next year, within the next 10 days or so. As I mentioned, Dr. Settles offered us a $250 raise. We had an offer from Connecticut for $2,500, and the superintendent from there wrote to Dr. Settles for reference. Dr. Settles told me that he'd written a very good reference, but that we were good teachers and he'd hate to lose us. Really made us feel good, and he offered an additional $110, making it a $360 raise, which was the most he could, he said. I know it does sound better to stay in a place longer than a year, and it is a nice climate. I wonder why I always get so darn restless. The last few days have really been quite eventful for St. Augustine and really very different for us. They had what they called a Spanish fiesta for 2 days, Friday and Saturday. They closed off one of the oldest streets, very narrow, and had it decorated from one end to the other with everything imaginable, and booths and eating places all along the way. They had a magician at one end and fortune-telling. Oh, everything. What made it so different from a church bazaar was that practically everyone wore Spanish costumes, even little children. They had one space, patio house, where the children all danced and sang in their Spanish costumes. All the stores and shops were open. This town is so full of antique shops and souvenir and novelty shops. We had a very good time. Over 3,000 people there Friday afternoon alone. Saturday afternoon was spoiled a bit for me because we had to keep ducking that sailor. So help me. He finally cornered me, so I left. That sounds silly, but it's really not. Johnny took me out Saturday night. English had insisted that we go on a boat trip that we'd been invited on. Apparently it's a lovely yacht, fitted up very beautifully and carries 16 people. We were to go up to Palatka on the St. Johns River and back. However, Johnny didn't want to go because he said he didn't like the crowd. Mary wasn't crazy about going, so English got mad and went anyway. It left Joe, Mary's boyfriend, without a car because he'd given it to his brother since he thought we were going on the boat. It worked out, though. They went with us. We went to the Blue Heron and later drove out to Ryan's. It's the prettiest country out there. Lots of trees with hanging moss on them. Those kids have really been so swell to me. People are so different, I think, down here. Take things more casually. Sunday I taught Sunday school and went to church. After, there was a big parade for the blessing of the shrimp fleet, Catholic. A huge crowd turned out and went from the cathedral to the old fort. There were about 75 big shrimp boats, all decked out with flags. The priest went around on a boat and blessed them all. It couldn't be described, it was so lovely. The weather was beautiful for it, too. It's been quite educational for me. They had a ball to crown the king and queen. They are monarchons, the old Spanish descendants. I went to art class last night, painting, and Mr. Etter said I did the best of anyone there. Said it in front of Marion, too, so I have proof. Sort of like it. I meant to go into Jacksonville and get some things for Easter, so I feel very neglectful, dear, but I am thinking of you, and there's not much in the stores here. I'll be looking for a letter, dear, and talk to me. Love, Ruthie. P.S. Incidentally, on purpose, I made a raisin pie yesterday and some ice cream today. Good, too. R.S. 28 Water Street, St. Augustine, Florida, April 12th, 1947. My dear sweet mother, you just couldn't know how glad I was to get both yours and Daddy's letters. Thank you so much for giving me some concrete advice. It wasn't that we couldn't see the pros and cons of what we should do, but it was just that when you're far away, you can see things more clearly. I guess we will tell Dr. Settles that we'll come back for another year. It's true they have been very good to us. Dr. Boatner of Connecticut wrote that Dr. Settles had written him such a good letter of recommendation that as far as he was concerned, nothing further had to be done, and that the position was ours, beginning at $2,500 for 9 months. The hours are much the same as here. I guess we'll have to write and thank him. Dr. Settles said that if we stay and by next February still would like to leave, he'd help us get into any school we liked by writing for us. Isn't that ever swell? So it was nice to hear what you felt about it, and it made us decided as to what to do. Marion's mother, like Bud, asked why not go back to Saskatoon. It would be nice to be closer to home, but it's been such nice weather here, and the school is so much more oral. I've said it before, I guess, but it's really remarkable how these kiddies talk. I hate to think of baby Crowther learning signs, and when the young ones are in with the older ones, they do learn them. The teacher across the hall from me is married to a deaf teacher. He's one swell guy and drove me home from school a couple of times. He talks away and then looks at you to lip read the answers just as naturally, and the older children do talk well too. You've probably wondered why I haven't written sooner this week. I've been very busy with Marion having the flu. She went to bed right after Easter service, although we were invited out to the beach cottage with the Dunhams. It was such a lovely day, but I stayed with her, and she hasn't been up all week. 5 of her kitties have had the flu, so it was inevitable, I guess. I was worried, so got the doctor Tuesday, an emergency call, since the telephone's been dead since Monday morning. The doctor gave her some medicine and told her to stay in bed. I think she'll be going to school Monday, though. They sent her a lovely bouquet of gladiola, and she got a beautiful nice corsage of 6 red rosebuds for Easter, but she doesn't know who from. I imagine it was from English, but he went to Surfside with Johnny and I and another girl Saturday, and Marion came out with a different fellow. We went into Jacksonville earlier Saturday, and I got 2 more dresses. I know this sounds bad to you, but honestly, it's too hot for any other clothes I have. The weather is the nicest I've ever seen in my life. Really warm, and the birds sing practically all night. The leaves on the trees have pushed the old ones off, and the whole country is the prettiest green. Right now it's raining so hard and the thunder seems to be all around, really deafening. Yet but a few minutes ago the sun was shining and will be again soon. I do hope you come down to visit Florida, but not unless either you or we have a car. We've been thinking seriously of getting one. You really need it here. If car prices weren't so silly. Zoe paid $625 for hers 6 years ago and can get $900 for it now. We're going to see, though. I went to one of the 3 hours on Good Friday and also to Easter Communion. I'll bet Reverend Creel wouldn't have liked to have seen the collection plates. There were 6 of them and piled high with $1 and $5 bills. Very little silver. I had my kiddies make Easter baskets on Friday. Incidentally, the first Good Friday I've ever had to work. Saturday I bought some chocolate marshmallow bars and candy, and Johnny and I drove up to school Saturday night. The house mother let us in and we had a great time filling the baskets. Spoiled old English didn't know why I hadn't had their names put on in icing. That's really typical of people down here, always wanting more. Anyway, my kiddies loved it and told me Monday that the Easter bunny came in, hop, 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 and filled the baskets. It's a great life. Oh, remember I told you they took some color films at school, including me teaching the 3 bears. They came out very well, and we showed them to the kiddies. They all got thrilled to see Miss Smallshaw. Arthur wrote in his letter home, "We saw Miss Smallshaw and I in the movies." They're taking the film to Tampa to show it at the Florida Education Convention on Special Education. You know I talk like this, but it's rather embarrassing to see it written in a letter from Auntie Fenny that Ruthie's doing so well, because it's really just ordinary, only I get a kick out of making things sound good. It's more fun that way. I really think that I have been lucky, though. When is Daddy taking his holidays? Saving them until next winter and come to Florida and visit me for Christmas? Or January or so? I wish car prices would go down so we could get a car in June. You remember me mentioning the poker games we had out at Dunham's? Well, Bob, one of the fellows that used to drive us out, took me out the other night. I've probably mentioned him before. He's quite nice, but terribly hard to get along with, very abrupt. He lost a leg in the war and has an artificial leg. He's very good with it, and you'd hardly know he had one. Quite natural. Anyway, he's quite interesting, but well, I'd probably be a lot crabbier. Anyway, he has a lovely 47 bright green Chevy, very flashy, and everyone notices it. We were in the Blue Heron, and Dorothy Jean, Mrs. Dunham's spoiled daughter, and her boyfriend came in. They sat with us, and she said, "Oh, I didn't notice your car outside, Bob." He said he'd parked it at the side. "So bright, you know." "Well," she said, "it ought to go very well with this," pointing to my hair. "Gee, Mama, I didn't know people could be so..." He just said, "I thought so too." But I'm not very crazy about this smart set. Marion said she'd have said something, but I just don't and won't be with people like that. There are so many nice people in the world, and I love you nice people so much. Love, Ruthie. P.S. I've got spring fever and am a little bit silly. Thank you so much for the brownies, dear. It was so sweet of you to send them to me. They came at a really good time. I hope you're feeling better, dear. Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind, St. Augustine, Florida, April 17th, 1947. My dearest mother, how nice it was to get your letter, dear. I'm sorry I couldn't write sooner, but this time I'm in bed with the flu. I tried to write a couple of times, and Marion suggested that she write, but I didn't want you to worry, because I'll be okay in another day or so. Marion's flu was the same kind her kitties had, affecting her chest and throat. Mine is like is like a couple of my kitties have had, affecting my head and giving me an upset stomach. But I'll be okay. It's so nice of them at school. They sent me a lovely bouquet of flowers, too, keeping our sweet pretty. They're really lovely. That was such a pretty Easter bulletin from church. I really liked it. No, dear, as yet we've neither resigned here nor made any decision. But Dr. Settles says he thinks we'd better come back, and you do, so we probably will. And about this summer, I don't know what I'll do. I've been thinking of taking a course in nursery education in Syracuse, New York. Preschool teachers for both deaf and hearing children seem to have a stand-in, and I felt last summer when I was talking to Mrs. Crowther that I wish I'd known more about preschool deaf children. However, I still don't know, and that's just an idea. It is a 6 credits class, though. What do you think? You asked about Marion and Ian and Don. It seemed funny. Just the other day we each got a letter from them. Ian's in Toronto now, working in a mine. He quit varsity and apparently hadn't even gone home. Marion hasn't written, as we have our own opinions on people who don't buckle down to business when it's necessary. Don began writing his exams today and says he's been studying quite a lot and that he missed hearing from me. I haven't answered his letter of about 5 weeks ago, and he suggested I answer some of his questions. I wish I could, but I don't know whether I'll be going back, but we'll try to answer him. I still think he's pretty swell. And I wish that younger brother of mine would buckle down to business and try to make some success of his present occupation, grade 12. Marion's dad apparently has had ulcers. The family are pretty fed up with him. Even little Donna writes, "He's so hard to live with." Moral to the story, career girls are made and not born. We've had some really torrential rains the past few days. It comes down so hard you can't see out the windows. Johnny and I just about got drowned going into Surfside Saturday night from the car, yet in a little while it'll be so clear. It's very unpredictable. My kitties said, "The sun is shining. It is raining. Funny." Yesterday, English came over to ask me to go out to their place and get Johnny and with another girl to go to Palatka, a town. Of course, being in bed, I couldn't go. I think he must stay awake night figuring out things to do and places to go. He was sure sorry we didn't go on the boat trip. And how about a picnic Sunday? We went to the show The Young Widow the other night and then to Dixie's. I really didn't enjoy it, as I guess the flu was starting to work on me then. Our telephone strike is still on except for emergency calls. A fellow phoned me last night, and I went to the phone thinking it was important. I don't know how he got through and didn't talk to find out because it wasn't sure funny to hear the phone ring, though. I guess it's pretty tough where they're having their tornado, and was it ever awful the ship that blew up on the docks? The aspirin's wearing off. Better go. I love you. Bye. Love, Ruthie. P.S. Hope your teeth aren't too much trouble, darling. To be continued. Well, that concludes today's presentation. Good luck to you with your efforts in family history. If this interests you, finding, preserving, and sharing old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they're alive. Thank you. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.